We have a lot of tools on our farm, and that's our choice. We want a tool for every situation. You wouldn't have to go that far. Probably the three main ones that you could get by with: rotary hoe, a tine weeder, and a cultivator. If you had those three, you can do a decent job of weed control.
We've really come to appreciate the importance of blind cultivation. I think there's a lot of emphasis on row crop cultivators and making them better and really tricking them out and customizing them to do everything. But really our best fields are the ones where the timing of a tine weeder and a rotary hoe is done well and the weather permits it and you hardly need to cultivate. Cultivator is not where the battle is won and lost, it's the cleanup crew.
We get some cheatgrass and some thistle in those winter wheat crops, and in the spring, once the winter wheat's up tall enough, I can run the tine weeder through and do some weeding without hurting the crop. And what I've actually heard is that if it does stress that plant a little bit, it actually promotes plant growth and the winter wheat will shoot up even taller. And I've seen that on some neighbors' farms.
I'd say the tine weeder is the most important weed control tool we have. But the caveat is you have to have a tillage regime and a crop rotation that is managing residue, which is really difficult when you're trying to emphasize shallow tillage at the same time. So the tine weeder is a 30-foot treffler, so a 12-row treffler. We have a hydraulic adjustment of down pressure in the cab, so we can, as we're driving across the field, we can adjust the down pressure. It's not a series of gangs that are rigid that you can control the hydraulic down pressure on. Each individual tine has its own suspension system, which is a little bit more complicated engineering, but it means that if you hit a rock or if you're on a slope, like the down pressure across the entire 30-foot frame is going to be even. We tine weed really aggressively in small grains too, so it's not just a corn and bean machine. Not so much winter grains because they don't really need the help weed control wise, but spring grains in particular. We tine weed wheat and oats at like 3 or 4 leaf stage, and you bury them. I mean, it'll turn your stomach. And I learned from Harold Wilkin and Tor, guys mentors of ours that have been doing it longer, is like, you're really gonna feel like you just killed your field. Because it's just because of the way the wheat or oat plants are rooted, you're not gonna uproot them. You're getting all the white thread weeds, you're disturbing all the soil. You're gonna cover the plants, the wheat plants, so long as you're not actually physically uprooting those plants, they're getting covered with like basically loose, friable, dry powder soil. So they just grow right back up through it. I actually know we're the first farm, and I think the only yet in the country, who's bought the add-on of an air seeder integrated into the treffler tine weeder. I've seen it on Einbach's and a few others, but that's actually really important. We use it a lot. It allows us to frost seed clover really precisely because it broadcasts the seed evenly across that 30-foot frame. You're not doing with a spin seeder that's gonna. Clover seed and alfalfa seed are so expensive that like getting an even stand is really important. So to be able to use the tine weeder in February and March to do that, it's another use for that machine. We wouldn't put everybody who drives tractor on our farm in the tine weeder. It's really easy to be miscalibrated and kill a bunch of your crop, especially when you're in a blind pass. Pre-emergent corn or beans. If you're running too aggressive and you're actually disturbing seedlings, you wouldn't even see it, and you'd knock out a lot of a crop. So it can overdo it, or you can be doing nothing if you're not set aggressive enough. But like really focusing on white thread stage weeds, like that's really where you win.
Tine weeder, I've never had any luck with. What we're doing is farming with too high a residue. That's the direction I wanted to go, and tine weeder just haven't had great luck with. That said, we've got it's an Einbach Aerostar rotation. It's a rotary tine weeder. I got that this year and wasn't able to use it as much as I liked because of weather, but what little I did use it definitely has a place. My intent was to get that to replace the rotary hoe in a pre-emerge pass. The rotary hoe to me isn't aggressive enough where it needs to be, where the gauge wheels push stuff down. Weeds in the row, that's the problem. Everyone can get them from in between the row. And so the Aerostar rotation I got with the intention of running that instead of rotary hoe pre-emerge, and we didn't have much opportunity, but with the residue we have, I think that's going to be a really good tool for us.
This piece of equipment is an Einbach tine weeder. This is a 40-foot tine weeder. One of the features we like about this one is there's a cylinder on each one of these sections. so we can control the aggressiveness. So it's way back, it's less aggressive, and if you can tilt it down and get it more aggressive. We have the tines with the hook on it. We kind of think the more aggressive we are on weeds, the better job we do. We also have a Hotzenbeckler at another farm that I have not used yet. That's also new this year. That's a 40-footer as well. Be trying that one out soon too. Yeah, so one of the timings for any tine weeder is to get the grasses and the weeds right when you see white hairs. If you peel back the soil and you start to see the white hairs coming out, or even when that weed is just 1 or 2 inches, they're very easy to get out. Just rough up the soil and they kind of pull out. Once they're out and exposed, especially on a good sunny day like today, that weed's gonna die. If you let the weeds get up to 2, 3, 4 inches, they've rooted enough where the tine weeder's not gonna do a very good job. So timing is critical. We also like to tine weed even before we see weeds, before the crop gets up, just to rough up the soil so that there's no soil to seed contact with those weeds. And we have found that we've got better weed control when we keep it moist, especially if you catch a little rain, but not enough to knock you out of the field for a day or two, and you can get in there and run the tine weeder. Does a very good job of weed control. When we go before the crop is up, so we try to hit it right when it's sprouting, but not shot that big sprout yet, we go pretty fast, up to 10 miles an hour. So we're really trying to get those dancing and really rough up the soil. We probably go 5, 6 miles an hour through soybeans. So it's still pretty good speed. And you just got to gauge that on your soil conditions, how your plants are doing. You want these tines dancing. So when they get down pressure, if you're going too slow, they don't get the back and forth motion. You want to be going fast enough where they really get dancing, because that's when they do the most work and gonna take the most weeds out. We have 2 uses for it. Generally about 2 to 4 days after planting, we will do a tine weed on our ground. And then we'll come back, especially in soybeans. When soybeans get to be that 3 inches tall, when they're super flexible, we'll get very aggressive on weeding. And these tines dance when you put downward pressure on them, and you think you're not doing anything. You get to the end of the row, you lift up, and there's weeds hanging off of every tine, and very few soybeans. I was very, very surprised the first time I ever ran one of these at how many soybeans it did not take out. So this is probably our best tool for soybeans for weeding. Yeah, the first time you run these, it's a little nerve-wracking. These tines are they're pushing especially soybeans around a lot. And the only thing I can say is it's gonna do a good job. The beans are gonna be okay. And the ironic thing is almost every year for probably the first 2 or 3, 4 years we did it, we got done with the year and we said we should have been more aggressive with our tine weeder. The beans can take it. They're super flexible. And yes, you're gonna lose a little bit of stand, but the bean next to it will make some of that up. But it's more important to get those weeds. Weeds really kill yield, and if you have walkers get them, it gets very expensive. So acceptable loss is the way I would put it. And you'd be surprised. Just try it out, be aggressive, get to the end and just see how many beans you actually take out. It's actually not that many. And then when you lift up the tine weeder at the end and you see all the weeds hanging off of these tines, that's when I always said, oh, maybe the thing did a pretty good job. So this would be in the lower 20s. So generally you're gonna find them from 20, the different brands, 20 to 25. We have looked at a Trefler is another one that has kind of a unique design. I think that's approaching $30,000 for a 40-footer. We run 16 row 30 equipment. If you're thinking of, do I use a rotary hoe or do I use a tine weeder? You could probably get by with one or the other. We do both. I think they have a little bit different action. This is a rotary hoe. This is a Yetter rotary hoe. We just bought this new this year. One thing on rotary hoes, the action for these, as they roll along at a fairly high speed, we go from between 10 and 12.5 miles an hour. But these spoons are what you got to watch if you're buying a rotary hoe. After use, they start to wear down. And if they're not wide like this, then they're not going to have as good an action. So we want it to throw a lot of dirt as it's rolling through the field. This field was recently burned 2 days ago. And so we are coming back to try to loosen the soil up. And then we're going to cultivate it here in another 2 days or so. So this is going to knock some of those small weeds out, but more importantly, it's going to loosen the soil up to prepare it for cultivation, which is going to be the primary way that we control weeds in this field. We use a rotary hoe, corn and beans. So right when the corn is maybe that 2 to 3 inches tall, We don't use it at spike because the corn plant is most vulnerable then. It can snap. So you can use it before it emerges, or you got to, after it emerges, wait till it gets a couple leaves on it. Perfect time to use it. And then we'll come back either before that or after that and use a tine weeder or some sort of harrow. Yeah, another application for these, even on the conventional side, they'll use rotary hose if you get a really hard rain. Sometimes your corn has trouble pushing through the crust. We have that sometimes. Sometimes people like to open up fields if it's got a low spot and it's a long wet area. Just helps kind of dry it out. So if you got corn sitting underground, conventional people, sometimes they actually prefer not to have the spoons on. So there is a market for used rotary hose. They don't care if they have the spoon on. All they're trying to do is break the crust. So where on the organic side, it's important to have the spoon because we want the action to get to really kick those weeds out of the ground, really loosen things up more than just breaking the crust.
It's a John Deere, just a big 30-foot John Deere that's like actually just 3 or 4 different rotary hoses that we pieced together. There's so many just available on auctions and stuff that Yetter and a few others will make a really fancy heavy-duty new rotary hoe. But and I'm sure those are a lot less of a pain in the butt on that like bearing maintenance and stuff as the old ones. But the old ones are basically, as wheels wear out, we'll just go buy another 15-footer on auction, and then that's a whole new set of wheels and parts and springs. And so, because the problem is if they start to get full of stuff, then just like a tine weeder, they're a club rather than a weed control tool. So we spend a lot of time like grinding off the rivets and replacing the stupid little bearings. And so that for me is the most important thing about the rotary hoe, is the maintenance of it. Once you're in the field, you just drive as fast as you can and stay off your row.